G'day guys, welcome to the garage. Byron here from the Hobie Sports Pro Fishing team. My year's done for the year. The Australian Championships over in Perth, a little bit far for me to travel, and I've got to work. So I'm here servicing all my gear ready, getting ready for summer. Thought I'd take the opportunity to take you through some of the gear that I use, some of the ways that I've got the kayak set up. That way you guys can catch more fish ultimately and enjoy your time on the water in the months to come. There is a fair bit to talk about on the Pro Angler 14 because she's a beast, and I've got everything basically set up the way I want it, and there's good reasons for the way I've got some of the gear. So I guess for the next 10 or 15, just chill out, let me take you through my gear, and berate me if you want. Go through. I'm going to split the kayak up into three sections. The front, the cockpit area, and obviously the rear. Look, we'll start at the front, we'll make our way to the back, and I'll talk about some of the stuff that I find kind of handy. Right, so the first bit, yes, I'm going to talk about the hatch, believe it or not. The 14 has got the biggest hatch, and I'd suggest you use that to your advantage. Particularly this bad boy here, the strap. So you can set up a few different ways, but let's say you've got it set up like that. You can see it's on a little bit of an angle. It's actually kind of handy. If you use it as a sail, it's a little bit too far forward, it can collapse. So only a little bit of pressure there. That wasn't too much pressure. It'll collapse forward. So you want to find a nice sweet spot where if it's too far rearward, you're going to get it fall over. But if it's too far forward, it will obviously fall the other direction. That's probably not too bad where that is. It's probably on the slightly, ever so slightly forward, but I've only got one hand, so I'm not going to get that perfect for you. All right, what else have we got here? So two things we're going to talk about here, three things. Reference the bucket, the bag, and my wet mount. So the wet mount itself, you can see, is my structure scan. I'll fill that little plug up there with water. If I need to ever change it, use that plug there to rinse it out and change the water. It is gooped in there, and the reason I have it in there as opposed to at the back there with the Powerpole, some guys have it hanging off that little bit of H-rail there. Also some dudes run it supplementing the underneath center mount, the Lawrence Ready mount. Speak to James at Hunter Watersports, reference that because he rolls that system. I like the inside because I do a fair bit of structure fishing, and I don't like bits and bobs hanging off the kayak that can, that can catch and busy then dealing with tangles as opposed to actually fishing. So that's how it is. You can see the cordage there has been put away kind of nicely and neat and zip tied in there. James did the full installation there for me. I don't have the battery here. A lot of guys like the battery on this pole. Personal preference. I don't roll that. I like to have access to my battery. It's going to be in the center hatch. I'll talk about that in a moment. All right, so the 14 front hatch itself, or the bucket, is huge. It's huge, it's awesome. I keep my wet things here, so that's a drogue chute, but I also keep the wet weather pants and the wet weather gear after I've been wearing it and I'm hot, and I'm getting hotter, so I want to take it off. That's where it goes on the outside. The reason it goes on the outside is because I use this awesome bag that I cannot rate enough on the inside. It is a PA12 size bag, which means that I've got that extra room to put the wet weather gear in the front and obviously underneath. These have been around for a little while, but I reckon the uptake on them, on the bags, has been really only recent. And I don't know why that is, because they're such a sweet piece of kit. I like it because I keep all my new things here. I keep all the things that I don't immediately need access to there when I'm fishing. So example would be the new lures go down the side pockets here. The line, the upgrade hooks, the stuff that I don't need access to immediately. There's pouches on either side. There's a chubby vibe to further the point, and there's a nice little handle there that I carry everything in. You might have seen it when I was unpacking the trailer over there, but in here I'll have 5 Plano tackle boxes all set up like this, and then the plastics bag that I got on the back of the seat here to the front. It keeps everything. It keeps my reels that are a bit of a mess at the moment that I'm planning to service this afternoon. But the cranker crabs that I don't need that are brand new, they can sit in there. The random screwdrivers that I don't know what I have in there for, the painkillers. You'll notice it's a cooler bag. That's, I guess, the first point, right? So my food stays in here, my frozen drinks, so that they're nice and cold, and you know, those ham and cheese sandwiches stay that nice and fresh kind of bit there. By the way, I will apologise. It's my first video, so if the handling of the camera isn't great, bear with me and flow. It'll get better in time. Brilliant. Now I'll close this up here. I'll also close the hatch up. I'll just throw the one in. Usually on the water I do throw only one strap over, but if it's raining, there's the other strap on the other side that I highly recommend. In terms of the front, you'll see it's quite clean. A lot of guys who video log and fish and post on Facebook put a GoPro mount here in the center, or you know, somewhere along this flat surface there. They might even throw them up the front there, which I don't actually mind as an idea, because you end up with this really nice kind of shot while you're working. If I'm going to put one on here, it's going to be here, or it's going to be here. Why? Well, my net typically sits like this, like that, either that side or you know, coming across onto the other side, depending on the side that I'm fishing off. Usually, actually, the side of the sounder. So I'll correct that. Usually a bit like that. If I've got a GoPro mount or one of those sticky surface things that goes on here, chances are that one of these little rubber knots is going to get tangled on it, and I'm going to have problems. Doing this, actually, every now and again that happens. Whatever, no big deal. But and I guess it's a whatever, no big deal with the GoPro mount as well. But I don't have any on there for that reason. I like to have my mounts hang off the H rails there. So that's where I keep the net. The net gets kept there, particularly on the left side. I'll talk about this in a moment, but I fish with the right hand on the rod and the left hand on the reel. So if I'm fighting the fish in this scenario here, the left hand, you know, picture me sitting there, the left hand picks this up. We then fish and catch fish and done. So that's basically the net and its location. You'll also see that I've got 6 or 3 either side long horizontal storage points, one on the right, one on the far left of your screen there, and you'll see 4 rods with those funky coloured disco sleeves running at the moment. I just have those for protection during storage and movement, but that's why they're in colour at the moment. I roll 4 rods. Typically 4 rods does me, unless I'm going to a location where a 5th rod or benefits me somehow. Now generally that means I'm going somewhere that has a wide variety of different fishing styles, or I want 2 rods to do something similar in case I have any issues with one of the rods, or there is a slight variation on them. I want to throw 2 different hard bodies that are a similar colour but maybe not exactly the same at once. Outside of that, 4's good enough for me, and I really enjoy having the cockpit area tidy as opposed to cluttered, so to speak. Brilliant. So 4 rods. I never, ever have anything vertical. The only thing that's vertical on my kayak is the Powerpole itself, and I've only caught that a handful of times with the lure that has, fingers crossed and touch wood, not resulted in anything negative in terms of my rods. The guys that know me know that I go through a fair few rods as well. Yeah, brilliant. So I'll turn you around again. So let's talk about the left-hand side versus the right-hand side. So I said a second ago that I fight the fish with my my right hand on the rod and the left hand on the reel. Means that my left hand there is free as I sit here to then punch the box, so to speak. That's what I said. So it's a HDS Lowrance HDS 7 Gen 3, shooting the structure scan with the transducer in the front, as you saw before, and the other transducer in the Lowrance Ready mount there. You see the cordage and the power cable just comes out of the left. Quite easy, straight into the unit there. It's not plugged in, but I'm sure you get the idea. On the left here, you'll also see the gear bucket. Now, the gear bucket, the way I've changed it, I usually have, say, the pliers in one side, the scissors sitting in the other here, and I typically don't roll it like it is at the moment. I roll it sitting at the front here, across the front, and I really like it in there again because when I'm in structure, there's nothing there impeding the outside that can be potentially tangled. I do have it here on the side when I'm fishing deep, like at St George's Basin or not in structure. I rate it. You'll see in the moment I've got a fly kit in here, and that fly kit's got little bits and bobs on that side and all my jig heads on the other. I really rate these. Got these from a Sportsman warehouse in Alaska a few years ago. I'm sure you can buy them on the internet. And bought 3 of them, and they've been tops ever since. The gear bucket itself, you probably may or may not be able to see. You see it a couple of times, but there's little holes. There's one at the end of my finger there, another one there, another one there. They're gridded the entire way across the gear bucket, so that way you get a bit of drainage. You actually have to drill those yourself when you purchase them. So you can, you don't have to do that, but if you get a little bit of rain, you don't want the gear bucket obviously filling up with water and causing some rust. Yes, there's some grubby jig heads in there that I'll need to fix as well. Brilliant. Now, the majority of my gear, I've got no affiliation with Daiwa, but the majority of my gear, particularly my rods, are all Daiwa. Yeah, quick post video edit because it did look really nice. But like I was saying, majority of my gear is Daiwa, particularly the rods. I've got to give a shout out to Maddie, my wife. Thank you very much. Who hasn't been really fishing out lately, taking care of our 10-month-old baby today, and I've been able to steal her Luviuses. Now, I've got a bunch of Stellas and I've got a bunch of Daiwa gear. The Stellas are really top notch. They're expensive pieces of kit, and because they're expensive, you pay for what you get. I would say that the Luvius reels as well that I've stolen off her have been awesome. They feel great in the hand. They make some really nice noise with reference to the drag, and they're really nice and smooth reels. Equally so is the Stella. You can't beat the Stella. I haven't had a lot of time on the Exist, but comparing the Luvius and the Stella, if you had $1,000 and wanted to buy some reels, I'd maybe be considering an overseas purchase, maybe say something like a Digitucker, and considering buying multiple reels that somewhere between the $300 to $500 range. Because whilst you might spend double that amount of money on a reel, the performance increase can be debated as to whether that coin is actually worth it, or whether it's worth buying multiple. Sweet, right, end cut. I'll get back to it. You'll also notice the mini Hydro Wave there. Yep, that's a... I can't tell you whether I've been rolling that all year. I've probably had that since about May. That just sits over the side there. It's a bit rudimentary. I'm sure you can mount them somehow, but I'm not going to. Jury's still out on that one for me. If you listen to Steve Morgan and his posts about what he thinks of the Hydro Wave, I think he really rates them, but that mini one there's got some less options than the larger ones on the boats, so I'm still getting used to using that, and I've been probably using it for 6 odd months now, on and off. Perfect. So the standard Vantage seat there for the 14 with adjustable lumbar support, that's a biggie. If you're spending more than 5 odd hours on the water, or 3 hours depending on your physique, 7 hours across 4 days like the guys will be doing on the Australian Championship, or 3 days on a normal comp day, you want that support there. The great thing about the new Outbacks and the Sports and those kind of models that are less than, that are smaller than the Pro Angler, is that they've got this new seat that's not exactly the same as this, but for all intents and purposes it is just pimp. In my view, that's the big thing that changes, separates Hobie from the other products. Right, so we've got this Hobie gear bucket here. I was lucky enough to be one of the first to be given it from Again, James at Hunter Water Sports, but it is streamlined. I keep all my plastics in there. So I'll talk about storage in a sec for the rest of the stuff, but all my plastics stay in here. The jig head, obviously, you saw in the gear bucket a second ago. But as I'm sitting here, turning around, dealing with my fish in the live well, I pull out my culling system, the weights there. So that sits in there without a problem. There's a hole in the bottom of it. I don't know if we can get a view. You can just trust me that there's a hole in the bottom. There it is there. Again, any moisture or anything that gets in there is disposed of. Sorry, just had to close that up there with 2 hands. So that's brilliant. You'll see that the culling tags sit on the bottom here. They hang nicely. This would be the setup, say, for 4 fish bag. I've got 5 culling tags there, 2 on one side, 3 on the other. And whilst I'm processing the fish into the live well, I'll use the culling tag there to deal with it. So I missed the center hatch. How can I miss the center hatch? This is where all the fun happens. See, it's a little bit dirty at the moment, but yes, I keep at the moment. I won't have this on the comp day because I'll change my gear to suit the waterway that I'm in. But at the moment you can see the Daiwa storage pack there with the cranker crabs. And then at the moment I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tackle boxes in here, all full of gear. You know, see that, for example, is a service box. There'll be a minnow box, there'll be a vibe box, there'll be a creature box. And then you can see here the battery. So this is just a small battery I've got in at the moment because of I'm charging that big ass one just there. But there's a female receptor here that's it's really tough to make out. It's a female kind of rubber square, and it plugs into the battery plugs into that square, and this remains stationary. And then you've got the power solution there. I find that handy because if I need to switch the power out because I'm running out of juice for this bad boy, I might nick the Livewell one. It is right here, and I don't have to go all the way forward. I can just switch between the two there, and that it's kind of handy. So realistically, yeah, there's 6, 7 storage items in that hatch area. So you'll notice that when you buy Pro Angler, or I think the Outbacks have got them, maybe not the Outbacks, but you'll get the smart tackle storage solution, whatever it's called. There's a funky name for it in there, the tackle management system, that's it. And it will have 2 trace areas in there. So you have all that room is basically taken up by 2 of these standard trays. I don't like that because, you know, I carry more gear than that. The other solution is the gear bucket, which I highly recommend. And if that doesn't work for you, a malleable plastic bucket that you can buy from Bunnings that sucks into that gap there, and then you can store everything like that. You'll see there's bulk room in here, and I can access every one of those tackle boxes without a problem. So big deal if I've got 6 in there. There's still plenty of room. I really rate that situation there. Just empty, open, boom, done. I can put as much in there as I want. Right. So the magic section, the rear section of the kayak, I'll just get rid of this life jacket. Now, actually, I will talk about something here real quickly. You'll see that I've got the this piece here, which is your rod holder, your 3-stage rod holders on an angle. It's not straight down, and you'll see it on the other side there as well. So they're it's on an angle. It's on it's 1 click off the up and down on that H-rail angle system there. The reason I do that is because it provides an offset. You can see how it's slightly offset there. It makes getting those rods in and out a little bit cheaper. I can't claim credit for that, but yeah, you'll see how the rods are slightly offset there. Saw one of the dudes on the comp one day with that and just froth over it. So the system itself for the Livewell, so it's an XL Livewell. You can see here ample amount of room. I've got the case in there, and you can see the output of your Livewell water pump there. Obviously sucks water from the bottom with the pipe on the other side here, and then you've got the overflow adjustment on the right side. Now you'll notice I've got one of these. I always keep one of those on me just in case I have any problems with the Livewell or need a bail water out of the kayak, which I haven't had to do. But you'll notice, and I guess one of the unfortunate things about the Livewell, it's got a fair bit of negative rap about it, is the pump itself. So there's 2 points that I wouldn't say continue to come up, but that come up that need consideration. The first is if you turn the switch off and you're not running it and you've got water in here, that pump is not primed, and thus the water leaks backward through it and out, so it slowly drains. So one of the solutions that I rolled for a very long time was to stick a $2 balloon, you know, there's you buy 50 of them, like party balloons, you buy 50 of them for $2, to stick it over the top of that. When it stops, when the pump stops, and cut a hole in the end so that the water can pump through. But when it stops, the plastic then, like a plastic bag, just goes through and creates a seal for you. I want to claim credit for it, but James at Hobie Watersports really came up with this outstanding gizmo. So you can see there that it screws on, that's the female end that screws onto the male end of the pump, and you've got a one-way pump there, primer bulb, with the pump in it as well. So when it screws on, you sit there and do these a couple of times and you've primed that pump, so no need to accelerate forward. The second part is that there's a one-way valve in there, so that when you want to turn that pump off and use the switch, water doesn't backfeed through the pump there. These aren't too expensive. I think they'll cost you about a 20 odd if you want to do it themselves, if you consider your time, effort, going all the different places to purchase some of the gear. I'd recommend you just contact James at Hobie Watersports, and I know he's got some of the gear ready to go, and he can provide you with that. Yes, to make them fit, I use these little walls here. Not everybody uses it, but if you want to use that, I've just maybe neatly cut a small section out that has no impact on performance at all. Cosmetically, it actually, if you do it right, it looks quite nice as well. But that on the left is what it used to look like, and obviously that's what it looks like now. Whoop-de-doo, no big deal. Every now and again, I run the middle-sized battery as opposed to the smaller size that comes with that. It gives me a little bit more power, but obviously doesn't last as long. Brilliant. So that's Livewell. I have a black hatch because it identifies it on a comp day when there's 50 odd or 60 odd boats all lined up next to each other. They all look very similar in that everyone's got the latest gear. The black hatch then identifies it quite easily. Now last but not least is the Powerpole. Now the Powerpole itself I really can't live without. Scotty Baker a few years ago did a article for SLH, and that's on their Hobie website. That's on the SLH website, that talks about how good the Powerpole is in weather, particularly on the flats. You know, if you want to be working a flat because there's heaps of wind, you need to really stay in the same position, and that's what this pole comes into play there. Double tap for full down, double tap up for full up, and you can set some power or some strength settings in there. So it's got a wave mode as well, so if you're getting hit with waves and that pole keeps coming in and out, it will continue to drive it down to make sure that you don't move. So that's obviously one side of the kayak. The other side there is the drogue chute. What do they call those? Anchor trolleys. There we go, anchor trolley. There's some really nice mounts on the Hobie for the anchor trolley, and you can see obviously the Mirage 180 there. Look guys, there's really not much to talk about. Yeah, they're the pants I use, they're the Lovick ones. A little bit of a plug there, and you can see my wife's pink Hobie that hasn't been on the water recently, that you guys are all probably missing from seeing photos of, but I guarantee you next season she'll be getting into it. She's got the Pro Angler 12. She sets things up a little different to me, but ultimately if you want to speak to her about the way she does things, obviously you can flick her a message or whatever. Guys, been a pleasure. Let me know if you've got any questions at all, anything that you want me to cover again in the future. But Bree and I'll try and get some close-ups and snap them in and out of the video as required. Guys, enjoy your summer. Hopefully some of this stuff helped you out a fair bit. Chat to you soon.